Let's talk about Christianity and anti-Blackness.
That were brought over into slavery, which wasn't right, but they got the gospel when they got here. But God, I still believe, used it.
I've said before that white people created white supremacy and then called it God. And I believe this is a psycho-spiritual framework that allows white people to avoid culpability for white supremacy and its impact. And it even allows white evangelicals to frame systemic inequality as a product of God, as God's will.
You know, what would be better? For them to have lived their entire life in Africa free, doing their voodoo or whatever, and then dying and going to hell, right? Or what happened?
Now, slavery was a ratio-religious institution. It framed Black people in one way spiritually, and it framed white people in another way spiritually. Under slave master theology, which was the theology that upheld slavery, Black people were understood as cursed descendants of Ham. This is called the Hamitic myth. And slave master theology said all Black people are descendants of the spiritual curse. And so we often forget that an aspect of white supremacy is spiritual inequality. Framing Black people as spiritually and morally deficient has been a way to uphold systems of power and privilege. And it's even been a way to frame these systems as ultimately good for Black people. It's been a way to frame our subjugation and denigration as positive, which is incredibly insidious. And I want to turn now to James Baldwin and his thoughts and reflections on this phenomenon.
If Negroes, don't seem to be very optimistic, it's not because they suddenly all changed from happy, shiftless, dancing darkies down on the levee, picking all that cotton and singing praises to the master. They've not changed at all. They never were optimistic. All one's got to do is listen to Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
Under white supremacy, we don't pathologize whiteness. We pathologize Blackness. We pathologize Black people and our responses to systemic inequality. But what I love here is that James Baldwin flips the conversation and he says, if you look at our work that we produced, our narrative work, our songs, the way we've engaged with white supremacy, you will see that for centuries we have said this system is crushing us and killing us. So why haven't you listened to these words? Why have you been so hell-bent on framing us as happy and jolly and joyful under these really violent systems?
Under these intolerable conditions for how many years? Nearly 400 years. We have evolved a certain kind of style to meet it, and a lot of that has been involved with the lies we had to tell to you. And the lies we had to tell to you, this compounds the disaster. You believe because you wanted to believe it.
I love this moment because he highlights that white supremacy requires Black people to lie for white people's comfort.
Every white man knows that he would not himself, lying track for nothing. He would not himself allow a child to be sold from him as though the child were a mule. He would not himself allow himself not to have the autonomy of his own house and his own woman. He would not himself pick all that cotton and carry it to market just because he loved white people. We all know that.
About this moment is that James Baldwin says, no matter how happy you want to paint Black people under white supremacy, the reality is white people would never justify their long suffering the way they continue to justify ours under this systemic duress, under this systemic inequality. White evangelical theology often requires and sanctifies Black suffering, and this is anti-Blackness. Black people never had to suffer to get to God, and Black traditional spiritual practices are beautiful, they are sacred, they are holy, and they are important. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Ciara. I'm a diversity consultant and a theologian, so follow me for more content like this.